Tonight, we'd like to welcome all of you, those of you who've already joined us and those of you who are joining us right now, to the Friday night talk with Inner Space. Tonight's talk is Reclaim Your Inner Calm, Ancient Strategies for Modern Life. And the reality is that we need to be able to tap into a timeless wisdom which allows us to exist in a calm space, particularly when everything else in our world seems to be up in the air. How is it that we can create a sense of stability, a sense of sureness, a sense of calmness and ease in our life without having to do anything externally or hard? Tonight's speaker is Michael Timmins. Michael's joining us from Sydney in Australia, and it's rather early in the morning, 5:30-ish in the morning. So thank you, Michael, for making that time for us. Michael's done a number of things. He's meditated with the organization for over 35 years. He's one of those early people that came to the organization quite early on and started exploring the reality of meditation and the use of meditation in your life. And so Michael's professional background includes merchant banking. He's been in the Treasury. He's worked in finance internationally. He's also been a sales trainer. And currently, over the last 25 years, he's created, along with his brother and a close friend, that's a bit like a brother from my point of view, a company called Clear Mind. And they are, I think, the most successful importers and distributors of premium non-alcoholic drinks in Australia, working with companies that are nationally based, like our Sainsbury's, and small boutiques. Michael's going to be sharing with us. After his sharing, he's going to do a short meditation, and I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy it, because after that I will be telling you how you can download Michael's meditations to be able to use them at home. But between that and the end of his meditation, Michael will be taking your questions. And so if you'd like to post your questions in the questions and answers, I will be then looking at those questions and then asking your questions on your behalf to Michael. So please do send in your questions. Michael, thank you. Over to you.
Good evening, London. Thank you, Artie. I appreciate very much the opportunity to share some of these ancient strategies that I've found. And I can assure you, you mentioned it's actually more than 45 years I've been studying with Brahma Kumaris, and it's extraordinary what you can do with some of these ancient strategies. But what I would like to do first is, I mean, I could sit here and entertain you with stories and we could all have a good time. But what I'd like to do is twice during the time together before the questions is to do a practical exercise of meditation. And I looked up a translation of the word meditation, and there's a Latin word called meditare, which means it's using your thoughts to connect with healing your heart. And in these times of not just lockdown and COVID, but the UK has got moving through the Brexit process, which is an increasingly anxious time for everyone living in the UK. So what I'd like to do first is just do a simple exercise that will help, because meditation is all these strategies around being peaceful. It's actually working with your thoughts. And the thoughts, you can't see them, you can feel the effect of them, But how do you improve a degree of control over what you think? Because meditation is simply thinking, and it's what I think about that determines my state of mind. So let's begin. And if you're, hopefully you're not driving listening to this, but if you sit comfortably, we're going to do the two challenges people have told me over the decades I've been doing this is that I can't relax. And secondly, my mind is going here and there. How to control the mind. So this is an exercise that takes about 2 or 3 minutes. And I always like to start these, excuse me, these talks, these sharings really with a practical, something that's a tool that you can take away to help you become more peaceful, how you can develop your own strategies using this ancient wisdom. So anyone that's done yoga will find some of these exercises, this exercise a little familiar. It's like, it's a breathing exercise. And when you're working with intangible things like your thoughts, how do I control? It's like trying to catch a slippery fish. It's very hard. However, this is easy. So simply put your feet flat on the ground, your hands on your lap or on your knees, and just take a deep breath, breathing in through your nose, and just hold your breath for a moment, and then exhale through your mouth. And do that again, but this time, very gently, I want you to bring your shoulders up. So take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then just bring your shoulders around as if you're on an aeroplane, doing all those exercises in between the movies you're watching. And exhale. And do that once again, breathing in through your nose. Shoulders up, and then as you exhale, and now once again, take a deep breath in through your nose, and this is very gently, don't stretch anything. And turn your head very gently to the right. And as you exhale, bring your head to the front. Do that again. And then turn your head to the, again, very gently, don't force it, just slowly. And then bring your head back to the front as you exhale. Now, once again, this time turn your head to the left. As you exhale, bring your head to the front. Now, just once again, turn your head to the left. And you can keep your eyes closed for this exercise. And what I'm going to ask you to do is just focus your awareness, your attention on your breathing. I'm going to give myself permission just to relax. As I focus on my breathing, I begin to feel a little quieter, a little calmer. I begin my inner journey. It's like I'm using my thoughts to take a step inside myself And I do this by focusing on my breathing. And as I quieten down, I find I'm becoming aware of how much I'm thinking about yesterday, about tomorrow, about this evening, every other place except being present here and now. So as I reel in all my thoughts, all my memories of today or yesterday or 5 years ago, and very calmly become present, and by getting in touch with yourself, you begin that inner journey to that place of peace and quiet that is waiting for us all deep inside. This exercise helps calm me down. If you've had a really busy day, just take a few moments to take a deep breath and then become present in what you're doing. We have a relatively short time together tonight, and I want to leave you with some practical tools that can help find that calmness, that quietness that's actually inside, not outside. And using my breathing, which is a very big ally, a real helper on this journey to control the quality of what I'm thinking about, not stopping your thoughts. That's a practical impossibility. Just to be quiet. I feel my neck and my shoulders relaxing, my chest, that knots that you might have in your stomach, just relaxing. And then your legs, your feet, your hands, your shoulders, everything is just starting to relax. And taking another deep breath. And I'm asking you to bring the palms of your hands together at your chest as one does in prayer or devotion, and say the word namaste. And then rubbing your hands together. Welcome back. So just take a moment just to reflect inside yourself. How was that? Was that easy? Was it difficult? What's this guy talking about? I've no idea. So just for a moment, just check yourself. And that word namaste is a greeting that many of you may know from India. And a translation of namaste that I've heard is that I acknowledge the light of peace within you. So how is that? Feeling good? Because one of the strategies that I've found that works is little exercises like this, that when I first started my spiritual journey, my meditation journey, I needed to do some things pretty quickly in my life for health reasons. I was living in London in the mid-70s. I was having a sabbatical from my banking life and traveling around Europe and all those things. And I realized, because there's nothing better than an Australian summer than an English winter when you first experience it. And I came to London at the tail end of, excuse me, the tail end of a pretty cold winter in 75. And I knew that I needed to stop smoking. My life slowed down enough to need to address some things. And I was very fortunate that through my brother's friendship with a fellow called Charlie, he became aware. He started going to the lectures of the BKs by Sister Genty, and then he stopped smoking. And I wanted to know, what are you doing? What are you doing? How did you do it? And so I learned through the teachers in London at the time some fundamental things. And I found very quickly that one of the strategies that helps your peace of mind is your health. And nothing is more acutely aware at the moment is with COVID is the need to keep the immune system really strong and doing healthier things, and where possible to do more walk. I'm sure everyone's noticed that people are much more aware, and health is one of the things that we can talk about this maybe during the Q&A. It's up to me, not you. It's up to me to do something practical with this spiritual information that you hear about through the Inner Space Network. And the key thing is, and I keep going back to it, is you've got to do something with it. It's not a spectator sport. Many things are, but not this. And so when we're going to talk about how to use this meditation experience of these tools that I've started to show you, is that the two biggest challenges to becoming easy with meditation, the first thing is people tell us that they can't relax. Well, that relaxation exercise we just did is from yoga relaxation exercises. And often the anxiety, the Brexit, the COVID stuff that we're all going through, you keep stress and tension in your shoulders. Not you, Deckley, but people that we've heard about. They keep the stress, and that builds up in the body. So that breathing exercise and stretching just breaks up the stiff neck that you may have, and you do that 2 or 3 times a day. It's like especially if you're going into a meeting or you're waiting for the bus or the tube, just for a moment, just do that stretch. And if you're on the phone waiting to speak to someone, it's a perfect time just for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Take a deep breath. And what happens when you do that, when you start, I saw some research recently that into meditation and the effect that the physiological effect of meditation is that something like 80% of our thoughts are about everything other than what we're doing here and now. We're thinking about yesterday, we're thinking about tomorrow, we're thinking about relationships that have long passed. And what that does do, what this research told us, was that the more you're thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, the less you're thinking about being here, being present in doing what you're doing and doing it really well and enjoying doing it. And you find that when you're not, your mind, people describe it, your mind is going here and there. What it is that you deplete the energy of your inner battery, really. And that's what we're going to be working with, about replenishing our battery to fill it full of peaceful, calm, experiences. And what happens when you do that is people say almost instantly, without prompting, is that they can listen better. Once you take this journey within, you actually become a better listener. You hear yourself, you hear um, your own voice inside that's calling out to be connected with. And it's like meeting an old friend. When you connect with that inner space within yourself, then you're able to connect better with others. And then that's demonstrated in how you deal with people, how you interact commercially in a business sense with your customers. And when something goes wrong, by being more relaxed and being um, pretty content with what you're doing, then as I mentioned to Artie earlier, that just naturally flows through into building better business relationships. And when people fly off the handle, or they're a bit too anxious, or they're not having a great day, by you maintaining your peaceful state as best you can, then that does affect other people. Then they calm down, and then they want to find out, how do you do it? You know, and I say it with a bit of a chuckle, because it's something it's common knowledge. A lot of this information, the spiritual, you can find it on the internet. Most people will be aware, to pick up some of these key things of spiritual information. But the unfortunate thing, it's not common practice. And by practicing, the more you practice, the better the strategies that you can develop to maintain that. Because once you get it, it's like a dividend stream. When you buy shares and the stock market goes up, you're getting revenue, you're getting income. And that's what this meditation, this spiritual practice is all about. It's about bringing an income of positive, peaceful states of mind. And when you practice this, all the thoughts that you use, you create these thoughts to focus on your breathing, to be peaceful, to become aware on your journey that there are ways and means that you can add into your own life to replace all the stuff that we actually don't need, but we sometimes hang on to. With all the anxiety that's going through over Brexit at the moment, on top of the COVID, no wonder everyone's a nervous wreck. However, there are ways that honestly, if I can do this, anyone can do it. And then the more you practice, it just becomes part of your life. It's not like as soon as this talk finishes, I become something else. So that's just in a nutshell. That's how you develop positive states of mind, peaceful experiences in your own life. And then the more you practice, that's the key. I keep saying it. You've got to practice. There's not much use learning a lot of this stuff if you actually don't do anything with it. And you'll see that inner prosperity starts to grow in a very positive way. And then, like, I never thought I could, to be honest, that I could stop smoking. I used to, every time you see these photos, these news alerts of, interest rates go up or down, and the news reports of people screaming at each other in these dealing rooms with lots of telephones and people doing things. That's what I used to do. Maybe, it was a few years ago that I was doing that. But once I stepped away from that, had a bit of a holiday, was around living in London, traveling to the Riviera and all those fabulous places you can do from London easily, I started to slow down. And I think, geez, I was getting chest challenges, chest problems, bronchial problems with the tail end of my first London winter. And so by learning this stuff, I was able to replace the reason that I was smoking. Because you look at the effect often with health issues and, don't do this, don't do that. Well, I knew that, but I had no tools that actually helped me stop smoking. And when I did that, it actually opened up another part of what I want to, some thoughts I want to leave with you. And that's about, because inner health is one thing, mental health and all, it's a huge, huge issue these days. But when I become peaceful and when I actually live this life, you become aware that there are things connected to what is that old saying, you are what you eat. And I became aware of healthy living issues like cutting down on the drinking, which I don't think I drank much. I just did what everybody else was doing. But when I found that by slowing your mind, by calming down, I started to realize why I was smoking. Sometimes that's a bit of a challenge, but when you open up space to do that, then you can replace it with healthy eating options, and vegetarian life and vegan lifestyles are now common. When I started becoming a vegetarian, it was like I had two heads. But now, with especially the move away from into vegan and vegetarian lifestyles, as part of something I can do to help the environment, and because there's nothing worse than watching David Attenborough give a reality check on the world's environment, which is pretty terrible, and it's what I do. I'm a part of the world. What I do has an impact. So by exploring healthier eating options, then you start to look into, hey, I can actually make a difference. This whole process, these whole strategies that you can do in your life, you can do, not someone else, you can make a difference. And if you can make a difference, you become part of the solution, not continuing to be part of the problem. So all these little key things, these strategies that you can develop that suit you, I'm not saying, do what I did, which was cold turkey, because I did need to stop smoking. But once you start to do that, you start to become aware, and that's some of the wisdom that I learned through the Brahma Kumaris, is that there are alternative ways of living that have a more positive impact, not just on myself personally and the people around me, but planet Earth in generally. And planet Earth is like our mother, and we're all children, and the children have been misbehaving quite a lot. So just some of those key things I just wanted to touch on and think about it, because without action, without doing something, it's, I'll leave that speculation to yourself. So, excuse me. Now, what I want to do next is, for a few moments, I've talked about how to you create some tools that work for you. But what I wanted to do now is just another form of meditation. It's about, again, all this is about using your thoughts. And by this next tool, this last exercise that we'll do together just for a few minutes, and then I understand Artie's going to be asking a few questions from you. Very simply is that there's a process of another form of meditation called creative visualization. Because often people say to me, "Oh, this is your imagination." Well, yes, it is, but again, it's a process to use. Realistically, use tools in your life, and this relaxation exercise is called going to the ocean. Because what creative visualization does, it's an exercise for your thoughts. It's about learning to focus and improve your ability to concentrate for longer than 15 seconds. So again, this is again using your own thoughts to create in the eye of your mind, the TV screen that is in your mind. And given that it's summer here in Australia, and often we talk about going to the beach, I live about 10 or 15 minutes from Bondi Beach and some of those southern beaches of Sydney, and fantastic. So I call this the ocean. So we're going to visualize, we're going to practice, and this is an exercise for you. So again, just for a few moments, take a deep breath. And just again, stretch those shoulders gently and keep your eyes closed for this exercise. I'm going to deepen the ability to create an image of beauty, and I'm going to do my very best to experience the beauty of what we're talking about. So this creative visualization exercise is another way to help control our thoughts in a much better way. So just imagine yourself, you're standing on a beach, pure white sand, just before sunrise. It's early summer, and I feel the cool of the night starting to turn into greeting the sun as it rises over the horizon. Beautiful sunrise of deep crimson red clouds, and the sky turns from dark of night into the beginning of a beautiful blue sky. And we're all standing at the shore of this lovely beach. And I hear the breaking of the waves gently. And just slowly moving forward into the water. And it's so refreshing. I feel the water lapping at my ankles. And the water's very refreshing, not cold. And it's inviting. So I look at all of you, and then we move forward, walking into the water up to our chests. And we now begin to float in the ocean. The sun is beginning to rise higher in the sky, and the water is so crystal clear. It's hard to tell the difference between the air and the water. It's so clear, so clean. And I now put my head under the water, and the ocean is embracing us. It's welcoming us to this beautiful experience. And I feel so refreshed and just floating just below the waves. And I look down and I see so many fish, as if it's on the Great Barrier Reef. Beautiful fish swimming all around. And I see forests of kelp moving with the tide gently from one side to the next. And I feel so relaxed. Feel as if the ocean is just refreshing my spirit, charging my battery, And I turn around and head to the shore. And we're all walking away from the ocean up onto the beach. And the sun is starting to shine stronger, drying the water. And I just look down and see the waves again, gently lapping at my feet. And I give thanks to the ocean for this beautiful experience. Again, gently open your eyes, put your hands together at your heart and say the word namaste, rubbing your hands gently, coming back to here and now, to this world that technology's brought us together. So those two exercises, if you practice those and use them in your life just before, in the morning before your day starts, a lot more people are working from home now. So that's a great way to begin your day, stop during the day and do this, the Brahma Kumaris have this wonderful exercise called traffic control, the traffic of your thoughts. So at fixed times in the day, you can stop and just take a moment to reflect, to go inside, remember the experiences that we've had together this morning or tonight. And then through this network of the inner space family, that you can continue to learn more and more practical exercises that can help develop your strategies to not just deal with the world today, but to grow and to be happy. So that's in a sense the essence of our talk this morning. And over to you, Artie, now.
Thank you, Michael. That was really beautiful. The first question is, what steps other than meditation can you take to seriously self-soothe in moments of high triggered anxiety and restlessness from emotional pain, especially during times of needing to self-isolate as I am alone?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for that. Excuse me. What I find is one of the best things, because you can't always sit and meditate. Sometimes your mind goes, oh. I find music one of the best helpers that we can have. And I'm not talking about AC/DC live, live in concert. There's a few, there's some wonderful meditation music. There's a fellow called Brian Eno, an English classically trained musician who has a series of different CDs on. He's like the godfather of ambient music. So mindfulness music, ambient music. And two of them I like especially. One's called Ambient 2, Plateau of Mirrors. That's a series of beautiful music performances that he's got with a fellow called Harold Budd, Budd. And Brian Eno and Harold Budd together have collaborated on a number of CDs that many people that are under different levels of anxiety. And of course, if you're alone, it's hard, it's a challenge. So music, Vivaldi is also, I find, just stunning pieces of music. And again, I can put together a playlist, I suppose, and share that with Artie. And there's a Catholic nun called Hildegard von Bingen, and she was a visionary from the 12th century in Germany, from memory. And Hildegard's music is still sung and cherished today. And again, in Europe, a lot of this music that can help reduce levels of anxiety is available. And of course, everything's on iTunes or Amazon or the internet. So they're just a couple of pieces of music that I use in my own life when, as a balance to when you can't meditate or you want an additional help. That's something I'd recommend, Artie.
Wow, brilliant. And very practical. You can do that at other times very easily.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Your next question is, well, they're starting with saying you seem to be very light and gentle, so maybe you haven't had any needed to experience this in particular, but they're asking, are there any ancient tools on dealing with mistakes without punishing yourself?
Mm-hmm. That's such a good question. One of the ancient things that I learned very quickly is in English, it's called past is past. Again, this is a question that comes from maybe from emotional pain, beating yourself up. Everyone that I've looked up to and acknowledged and admired as being spiritual leaders have all said the only thing you can actually do about the past is change your attitude to it. There may be significantly challenging things in your life. And what I'm not, you can't answer a question like this in 2 minutes. But by being present here and now, you can reflect on, if you would like to use the word mistakes, I prefer to use the word learning. That everything that happens in our lives is like an education. And I can promise you, I didn't know this stuff before. And to be honest, I feel I've been a pretty happy sort of fellow most of my life. I've had challenges. I lost my father when I was very, very young. Mum never remarried, and wasn't a lot of money in growing up. We weren't poor, but it was a bit tough sometimes. And I was working when I was 15 and a half. And I went back to finish a level of education later in life as a mature student, which I'd recommend to anyone do. And I used to give myself a hard time about things. I used to blame myself for things. It was my fault, all this sort of stuff. But really, you've got to change that, transform that from beating yourself up because you've made mistakes into recognizing that that's life. That was an education that I needed to understand. And then by putting a full stop to the past, I can give value to my life now, learn what I need to learn from those experiences, and do my very best not to repeat them.
So just giving yourself another chance, I guess, is...
Yeah, and learn to like yourself, because you're basically a pretty nice person, even if again, people have got to learn this self-esteem, that we've all got. I remember there's an American. I love music. I adore music of all types. And there's an American, Spanish-American fellow called Carlos Santana. And he was one of the first, after the Beatles went to India in the 60s, Santana and a lot of his compatriots were making music because they began to meditate themselves. And I saw Carlos in London perform when I first went to London. And he said that God made the world round so all her children could have centre stage. And he used to get everyone to stand up and like wrap their arms around the world, your world, with great love. And we really do need to love ourselves a little bit more than we do, and not to beat ourselves up when we fall flat on our face. And it's never that bad. And again, there are much more eloquent tools to help put the past behind you and look towards the future. Because if you're looking at the past all the time, you trip over when you're trying to navigate your life, to use these strategies to move forward. That's probably as much as I could share just at the moment, Artie.
All right, lovely, thank you. The next question is, you talked about how to heal your heart with your thoughts, and you call this meditation.
Yep.
Can you share a personal experience and the strategies and tools you used to enable to heal your heart?
Well, I'll be very honest. I said earlier that I lost my father when I was very young. Dad was 33 when he passed away. And I used to blame myself that somehow it was my fault. Dad left and I was the eldest son. And even though that wasn't conscious in my thinking, it was always underneath the surface. And when I was very fortunate enough to meet Daddy Janki, who was who passed away early this year. She was the head of the Brahma Kumaris, and certainly she was the head of the international part of the BKs, as we call ourselves, when I first started studying. And to be honest, I had a beautiful she was my first meditation teacher. And the first question I actually asked Daddy was, why did my father die when I was 7 years old and I grew up without a father? And she just smiled, and that wisdom that anyone's had the fortune to meet Daddy, that gentle old wisdom. And she just told me about the journey of the soul, that the soul goes through different lives, and when it's time for that soul to move on to its next part, as she described it in the big journey of life, you have to let that one go. And it wasn't, she said, it wasn't your fault, Michael. And I just sat back and just like, wow. And as I've learned over the years, decades that I've been doing this, is that things happen in our lives. And if you focus on the sorrow, then you become sorrowful. You meditate on being unhappy. And that is reflected in your state of mind. And when you learn, when Daddy first told me about the journey of the soul, I'd never heard that. Although it was a little bit familiar, I'd probably believed a bit in reincarnation, which is an interesting topic. And what it did do, it just eased what pain I had in my heart and my soul about Dad's passing. And so that's something, if I could share that with you, again, it's something that's a question that, it's a PhD thesis just on its own, of study of how to let go of the past, how not to give yourself a hard time, how to start to see yourself with beauty. And you're not that bad after all. Back to you, Artie.
Thank you, Michael. Wow. The next question I have for you is, we are living, as you pointed out earlier, in anxious times in Britain. There's so much uncertainty. Is there something in your toolbox that would enable us to maintain hope, particularly when our leaders are pretty inept?
Who'd be a politician these days, eh? It's funny, to try to answer that question is this whole discussion this morning is about building up strategies to develop peace of mind, to develop a more positive and peaceful outlook, a more respectful outlook for yourself. And I only hand over my inner happiness and my exchange hope for hopelessness if I choose to. I personally can't do anything, about Boris Johnson's foreign policy and his the cabinet's discussions about Brexit and negotiations and all these things. But what I can do is start to focus again. I keep coming back to this point. It's so important that the more you learn about your spiritual journey, about some of the facts of life, that I don't want to be flippant in making a statement like this, but don't watch TV too much. There's a number of, I love reading about how people are successful in their journeys. And again, this is part of the strategy. The tools I'd recommend you is music, listening to, instead of watching the 7 o'clock news, do something, read a book, read a book about, Mahatma Gandhi, or read a book of, some of Attenborough's outlooks. And there's so much positive stuff around to help connect my hope with. And again, this is a personal choice that you spend time looking again on the internet, looking for positive stuff. We have an Australian BBC called the ABC here, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and on their news app they've got a choice, good news, and it's the most more hits on that good news side than on the traditional day-to-day news. And if I can become more hopeful and I start to see that demonstrated in my own life, then you start to replace hopelessness, which is a pretty sad place really to inhabit, to change it, to read about. Just you're in ground zero culture in London and Europe, excuse me, and focus on positive stuff. That's the key. Don't focus on the negative. Don't spend all your time looking at your news app or because that affects your state of mind. And you can give, and it's just something, I'll leave this thought with you. When you meditate, when you do these practical exercises, take 50% benefit for yourself, and through your heart, through your mind, through the nice experiences, donate that out into the world. They talk about, there's a great old Beach Boys song called Good Vibrations. Every thought has an impact, has a vibration. Again, that's a whole different discussion. If I can donate positive, peaceful, good vibrations to the world around me, to my inner world, and to those around me, that's a much more, much less destructive use of your own, the same tools we're all talking about, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and your awareness. When you turn that into a positive thing, then the hopelessness that some people can feel starts to be replaced by stuff that helps take me forward in my life. Thanks, Artie.
The next question is, what are your steps for developing a calm perspective in a difficult situation?
Is definitely not lose your state of mind. That's probably the most challenging thing when someone's having a bad hair day and they don't want to take it out on you. you can do a range of strategies. And if it's a severe experience with another person, step away from that. Don't feel you have to change the world, change everyone around you straight away. That takes time. And if it's certainly not a physical threatening environment, or if the person that you're interacting with is not won't listen, or just, again, they're taking out their bad day on you, just step away, go for a walk, allow that person to calm down. And again, by maintaining your own self-respect, that will ultimately have a positive impact in the situation. And that's probably the biggest tool. It's also the biggest challenge of dealing with other people. And however, we do need to do it. We don't live isolated on planet Earth. There's a few of us around. So, but again, don't take it so. There's a cartoonist in Australia called Michael Leunig, Leunig. I'd highly recommend looking up his website. Michael is he's a manic depressive. Like a lot of clowns are often people that are depressed, and they do this extra thing. But Michael writes his cartoons are stick angels, and the one I like the most is angels can fly because they take themselves so lightly.
Nice. Very, very nice. Earlier you spoke about loving yourself.
Yep.
How do you develop love for the self?
I remember there's an English-Russian actor called Peter Ustinov, and he came from Russian royalty and had a very successful theatrical and film career. And he was one of the first ambassadors that the United Nations Save the Children used. Like now there are lots of Roger Federer, all these successful actors and musicians and sports people. They're ambassadors for things. And Peter was in Sydney once doing a performance, this is many years ago, and the press were really trying to rip into him, and cynical so-and-sos these reporters are, and they say, well, how can you do this and you see the world as it is and you all the time talk about positive things and hopeful states, what do you say to that? And Peter, just a very studious fellow, leaned forward and said, the alternatives, dear people, are too horrible to contemplate. Be positive, be happy, be peaceful, try and do something positive. And that's something that's always stayed with me. I'm sure if you look up Peter Ustinov on YouTube, you'll see some of those fellow. He was just a hopeless optimist, and it's infectious when you hang around people like that. Again, hang around people that are going to take your life forward rather than not.
Mm.
And then you learn to love yourself. It's really important because we're not that bad. There's always something good in everyone.
If there's something you dislike about in yourself, how do you get over that?
Simply change. If there's something that you really don't like about, if I don't like about myself, I really, some people are good at writing notebooks and stuff. I'm hopeless at it. I get to about half a page that I do something else. Really simply, if there's something you don't like about yourself, sit down in a little meditation exercise, a little space, just you and that part of you that you don't like. Work out what it is. And again, don't spend too much time doing this sort of stuff, because otherwise you miss out on the pluses, the positive stuff. And just say, well, what is it that I don't like about me? What can I do to replace what I don't like? And then to move forward. It's as simple as that. Replace what you don't like with stuff you do like.
Hmm.
And that's I'm a hopeless optimist. I'm sorry to admit, Artie, but because otherwise you know, don't even ask, don't even go down that path. And it's, again, this stuff's not either abseiling off the Sydney Harbour Bridge is probably easier than doing some of this stuff. However, it's a lot of fun. And again, the big thing is that you meet like a lot of people. I don't know how many people are here listening to today's talk, but we're not alone. There's a lot of people on the journey in different ways, of different faiths, of different beliefs, and they're doing some fantastic stuff. Focus on that. And then you find the stuff that you don't like about yourself starts to be replaced. You start to focus on more positive things, and then that becomes your nature, because that really is who we are anyway. Beautiful shining lights like stars in the sky. That's actually who we are as spiritual entities. And our physical bodies are male, female, black, white, and everything else in between. And they're the things that you start to learn that become your toolbox to go into. And again, you can't talk about it all in an hour or so, but you get the gist, you get the flow and the networks that everyone that's listening to this talk this morning, as I am, because I do this because I learn something new every time I do this. And we're not alone. There's lots of us around doing stuff, and that's it.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. That actually brings us to the end of the event this evening. Thank you all very, very much, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Michael, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day. Namaste.
And the same to you all. Namaste and Om Shanti. And thanks for the opportunity, Artie, and to everyone that joined us tonight. It was an absolute delight. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.